Welcome back to yet another episode of the Youth Roundtable here on Civic Space TV. Now, today we are discussing a very important development that happened last week, but one which came from other developments previously. In the year 2000, the United States of America, the world's biggest market, opened its doors to different African economies, and this was ratified in the African Growth and Opportunities Act, namely AGOA. In this act, many countries like Uganda were given the opportunity to export over 1,800 different products to the US market without any tariffs. This development has continued until last week, when His Excellency Joe Biden, among many problems he's dealing with, found the time to suspend Uganda and a few other countries, including Niger and Gabon. So my panel today, very capable at that, is here to read between the lines and help us to understand what was the motive, possible motives behind the suspension of the AGOA Act or the AGOA privilege from the Uganda market. Was it a privilege at all? Among other key issues, we shall also be discussing our political-economic relations in terms of World Bank. World Bank, of course, extending additional funds to Uganda in the wake of the Anti-homosexuality Act. Was this suspension linked to the AGOA ban? We'll find out from our panel. But also, the decision of the World Bank to continue funding HIV medication has also come to as a recent development, and we shall be discussing all those matters. I will introduce my panel, and starting from the gentleman on my immediate left is Mr. Agaba Ivan, who comes from Renewed Uganda. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Olaa. It's a pleasure to be invited once again to share the little I know with my fellow youth. I wish you people wonderful deliberation.
Yes, thank you very much. And next to Agaba is Mr. Mugume Nicholas, all the way from Kiruhura. I'm really pleased to have you today. We don't normally have people coming all the way to present upcountry voices. I think that's really important to have you as a youth leader here to dissect issues. You can say hello to our viewers.
Thank you so much, comrade. It's my good pleasure to come here. It's my very first time being here. As you said, I come from the great and the first district, Kiruhura. I'm very honored to be here, and I wish you a nice debate.
Yes, thank you very much. And finally, we have the evergreen, ever ready, and ever present Joshua Katabarwa, comrade, but also a political analyst. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Sam. Nice being here again. Nice meeting comrades, and I wish us a very nice deliberation.
Yes, and of course, I've stated clearly that the topic is around AGOA and, of course, our overall political economic relations with the rest of the world conversationally. But I would like to start from you, Joshua. What were your reflections as a youth in this country over the last 1 week? What are some of the key issues that came up, either locally or internationally, that you think that you addressed your mind to?
All right. It's always a great pleasure talking about Uganda. You've known that every time I want to speak about Uganda, I want to be like a Christian speaking about Jesus. Yeah. But what caught my mind over the last week, one, it's what we are here to discuss, the question of human rights in Uganda. It's continuing to be a very big question without answers, or seemingly very little and unsatisfying answers. We saw our comrades in the National Unity Platform organizing and opening their new offices, with the drama that followed up. Then I also followed closely the president and the Balalo question. Yeah, it is seemingly becoming something we shouldn't give a deaf ear in the north. I think the Balalo question should not be localized to the Acholi group. It is a question that is taking up the whole country. When we talk about land grabbing, we have had those issues here in Uganda. Talk of districts like Mubende, Gomba, Sembabule, Chiriandongo. Talk about it's quite a lot of drama in Uganda lately. And then you look at the people when we get back to the Balaro question in Acholi. The question is, who are the Balaro? Where exactly do they come from? When you look at the order paper, the executive paper order 3 from the president 2023, ordering the Balaro to go back to immediately vacate Acholi land. Now the question is, okay, they vacate going to where? So if you chase them from Acholi, are you sending them to Lango? If you chase them from Acholi, are you sending them to Buganda? If you chase them from Acholi, are you sending them to Ankole? Okay, when you give an order, I think it should be live here, going here. So when they are not directed well, that means we are going to live in a circle of fights every now and then. We leave this place, we fight from here, and then there is a question of politics in the Balaro question. I saw politicians over pushing this. I watched a televised interview with one of the politicians in the north, and it's a question that I think the government needs to handle clearly. There is a question of we are people who migrated here, bought land. We own land, we own cattle, we own businesses. And when you say Balaro should go, that means you are taking away even the legitimate landowners in the Acholi. But then we have those that are said to have been brought here, and someone comes and buys land and then brings his people here. Now, when personally, I would wish that the government and His Excellency handle this matter very well, other than shifting from one region, then we go to a different region. From one region, we go to a different region. But most importantly is that we are in the rainy season, and this is Uganda, this is Kampala. We know what happens every time the heavens decide to bless us with showers. We have Ugandans, I think myself inclusive, that love comparing Uganda to other countries. If you go to a certain country, even someone who has never crossed a district is comparing Uganda to a different country. If you go to a different country, you're going to find all things okay. But the question should be, Ugandans, are we doing what those citizens are doing to their country? I want to call upon Ugandans, I want to call upon ourselves to be disciplined. Let us dispose of where we are supposed to dispose of. Let us not congest our drainage systems, because when it rains, Kampala becomes ugly, and when Kampala becomes ugly, Uganda becomes ugly. With that, I thank you once again.
Thank you very much. And a few interesting things. One of them is, Makerere was already a hot hill, and now we have NUP also. So that hill is about to get more heated. But also the Balalo question is an interesting question. It's also a bit personal to me, so I will not engage because it's not the topic. But I'm sure, like one gentleman said about the Palestine-Israel war, is that in whatever decisions we make, is the end result everybody living with full dignity and rights. There's dignity and then the rights. And I think that's how we need to address this problem sustainably. Unfortunately, land questions tend to take very long periods of time, including what we are seeing in Israel, in South Africa, Uganda, among many places. Yeah, but thank you for your introductory remarks there. My brother, Comrade Nicholas,
Yes,
what stood out for you in the last 1 week?
Thank you so much once again. I'm here to collect you. I'm called Mugume, not Tugume.
No, please.
Thank you.
My apologies.
I'm called Mugume Nicholas. Happen to be the Chairperson of Chura District.
Yeah.
I'm very delighted to be here. And the last 2 weeks back, or 3 weeks, I've got too much drama in Uganda, as my colleague said. The issue of Balalo, it is also too personal to me because I had to come from Ankole.
Yeah.
And I happened to see one of the philosophers, so-called Honorable Okot, talking about that issue. I think he said that the customer land is not for sale. And some people are attacking him on Twitter that he also lives in Uganda. So the same question goes to him. She should leave Uganda and go back to Acholi. So it's also complicated. But I think we've got a chance and we got a good president that is a dreamer. I think everything will be sorted.
Yeah.
And going back to the topic of today, I think the US response to Uganda's human rights concerning Agaba, all in all, USA puts us on zit on a tie that we should accept the LGTB matters concerning the World Bank issues, intimidates us Uganda, that we should accept the cultural norms, change our cultural norms back to their beliefs what they want. I think that one won't work in Uganda because Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda, told us that we should not be bothered on what is coming from USA because Uganda must stand as Uganda and Africa at all. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Comrade Ivan.
Yes.
Yes, what stood out for you?
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade. Yeah? I think what stood out for me this week, or the previous 2 weeks, I think are mainly 3 things. One, I think I'll have to concur with what he shared. We're having a rainy season now. And you see, what the arid countries and semi-arid countries got to realize, because of the adversity they live in, is that when they got to realize that agriculture needs water, not rain. You get it? So here the challenge you have is when we are blessed with God's bounty, these Africans living in a well-endowed part of the world never take it to heart to harvest water, to keep water. So you wait, come January, we shall have a scorching dry season, and we will be lamenting yet again why it's no longer raining. Now, the second issue is about the Bararo, like they've shared. And it reminded me of something that a very good friend of mine, Comrade Benson Mayanja, shared with me one time. When he talked about that, you see that communally owned land cannot be sold. I think if I got him right.
Yes.
So Benson told me there's something called the poisonous tree theory. Yeah, so according to that principle, nothing legal can be born of an illegality. So an illegality once brought to the attention of court overrides everything else therefrom. It therefore becomes a nullity. So you see, and I think it's just the president, he's going there, is for him to strike a balance between, you see, what is right and what is legal, or what is moral and what is legal. It would be morally wrong to displace somebody that actually, where there was an exchange of cash, cash moved hands, but on a basis of a nullity, an illegality. So it's very tough. It's a very tough issue to resolve. But I think lastly, what stood out for me was the monopoly. The government deliberately wanting to create a monopoly over fuel. This Vito company that they're bringing over there. And we've made noise on Twitter to tell these people, why don't you let the price discovery mechanism of the market continue working as it has always been working? You see, they want to create a monopoly. Previously, the oil marketing companies would go to the I think there are like 3 suppliers.
You're speaking to the one of the releases, the press releases of the president.
Yes, one of the press releases of the president. I think they would go to like 3 suppliers in Kenya. So these suppliers would bring in fuel in bulk and then sell to the oil marketing companies. You see, but now they want to bring UNOC in between and they want to give it all the monopoly. So it means that the price of fuel, I'm very sure, would always depend on, say, how much profit UNOC wants to make a year. Because they have the monopoly. They receive the fuel from Kenya.
But the president says the country has been losing a lot of money.
The point is, look, what these people are trying to interrupt with is the efficiency of markets and how they operate. Look, we have been having surges in fuel prices, but only because this inflation has been imported most of the time.
True.
Yes, when you have Ukraine being attacked, you get it. Transport supply chains will be disrupted. Eventually, the prices go up. You see, but these people trying to establish a monopoly. To me, I think this is government's alibi to run away from competing with the rest of the oil marketing companies. Why create a monopoly?
So you think government should rather be on this other side?
The only way government can sustainably keep fuel prices down is by getting into the business itself. Yes, open pump stations all over the country if you're UNOC. You get it? Then compete with the rest of the oil marketing companies on a leveled ground. But this monopoly sort of business is I can speak here without any fear of contradiction. But a little fuel next year, if this passes, or if this comes to pass, we'll reach 10,000 shillings and beyond. Yes.
Maybe, moderator, to chip in a little, on that very issue, we have had price surges, like he says. And every time we have those surges, there is a reason given. There is a reason given, either there is an uprising in Kenya, or either there is a war in Ukraine, either there is... And now, now the statement has come and the president is blaming middlemen. Now, the question is, who are the middlemen? Who are the true owners of these companies that we have here that we call middlemen? And does that stop? Okay, if now you bring UNOC in, if you monopolize the oil industry in Uganda, does that mean that you're eliminating these middlemen? I think, like he says, if we leveled the ground for whoever is in business legally with competence, and then we removed the barriers, because if you say that you're buying fuel from Kenya and then you're putting you're putting a tax, let's say, of 2,000 per liter, what do you expect from me, the business person? So if you brought UNOC without answering the question of transportation, without answering the question of taxation, will UNOC accept to make the losses in those barriers? Definitely not. I think, like he says, monopolizing the economy is not the answer. The answer is we need to put a level ground for business if we have to benefit as Ugandans. So if it is about the question of prices, then what brings the prices?
Yes. Thank you for that. Were you concluding?
No, so as I conclude on that issue, shortly, briefly, is we would like to urge government. You see, look, if you want to curb this problem of rising fuel prices, as government, get into the business yourselves. Get into the business yourselves, bring the fuel from wherever the other oil marketing companies bring it from, and sell it. In that way, if you sell at lower prices as government, because of the subsidy and the taxpayers' envelope that you enjoy, then the rest of the other oil, the rest of their fuel retailers will also be forced to bring their prices down. But in the long term,
can we think about the oil reserves we had?
well,
And where they disappeared?
the oil reserve is now in another show on its own. But to solve this problem, I think indefinitely is how do you
What about in terms of the competence of UNOC itself, given that we have seen other government entities? For example, if you compare Airtel, MTN, and then UTL, we have seen the struggles when it comes to government bodies. And I think this was one of the issues during the structure adjustments.
yes,
That government-run entities are generally of less competence. First of all, by
even the existing
even
ones.
the hiring.
Even what you see as existing ones, they're simply white elephants. Let's look at Uganda Development Bank. Every year they are recapitalized. You know what recapitalizing means? Your liabilities exceed your assets. So on an annual basis, capital must be reinjected. That is, it's a candidate for privatization. Uganda Development Bank, Uganda Development Corporation, all of those are just candidates, moving zombie companies, zombie parastatals. So like I said, let government get itself into the business if they want to solve this problem.
Yeah.
But ultimately, is look, if you want to cut out the middlemen, you see, how do you catalyze? How do you stimulate effective demand for fuel so that you can attract the big suppliers, the Aramcos, the ExxonMobils, to come and actually open up stations in Uganda itself and supply you directly, so that you're able to cut out the middlemen along the way.
Yeah.
But you see, those guys cannot come here. You do not have the demand. Let's look at McDonald's alone cannot come and open.
Apparently,
Eateries in
there's something
Uganda.
called the McDonald's standard.
Yes.
There are a lot of companies internationally
Yes.
that will only invest in countries where there's McDonald's, because McDonald's does the checking.
Yes.
Yeah. And
And I think it has only opened up in Kenya. It can't come here. If people don't have demand, you don't. You've not yet grown a middle class to demand things like McDonald's and Wendy's, restaurants like Wendy's, popular restaurant chain, cannot come here.
Yeah, franchises.
Yes, franchises.
But at least we have KFC.
So stimulate demand, let the big players come here, cut out the middlemen, the prices will keep up.
All right, thank you very much. It's something that, of course, I urge our colleagues watching to look deeply into, the issue of oil, because oil is literally a big part of the economy, and it's something that all young people need to be invested in, because the government is you, and you're most of the population of Uganda. And of course, a cross-cutting issue was the Balalo question, which I think I was lucky I studied Acholi Land as my law school thesis. And so I'm a little bit of an authority. Feel free to engage me.
So you've marked all of us.
Feel free to engage me, and we have those discussions there. It's just an issue of complexities, but those are things that can be discussed. I think coming from the north, there are so many people that stay there. The Baganda, so many in Gulu town. There's even Buganda pub.
Oh yes.
There are also Banyankole, by the way. Maybe not of the Balalo group, but there are so many Banyankole, including my neighbors, Langi, and all this. So what is causing this problem? We need to discuss sustainably, because once again, if you don't deal with land issues at the beginning, it can take decades.
But I think, moderator, I'm sorry for this, but if someone comes again and say customer land is not for sale, if you purchase something,
yeah, but
an agreement,
I think what we are saying here is that as young people, my message was, of course I'm not allowed to debate, my message was that it's important to inform yourself, because action is equals to reaction. Once you pick of all messages, Odongoto's message, and you react to it, and publicly as a youth, as a young leader, you miss out so many things, and you also misdirect those behind you. So it's better to inform yourself of all these. For example, I have my thesis. It's something that everyone can read.
And authority.
There,
You share it with us.
there are other leaders who are not as inflammatory.
Sure.
So we need to avoid this bickering because it doesn't help us. I want to sit with you over the course of our life. So that's just my let's inform ourselves. So that even when you're on other sides, we are still able to sit on one table.
Sure.
And of course, yeah, we don't condone inflammatory
Language.
statements. In fact, it's illegal. Yeah. That said, moving on to the topic of today, which is the decision by Joe Biden. Amid so many problems, I was a bit surprised. I thought he's busy with trying to balance Ukraine, Palestine, Gaza, and then the China question. Because China is now free, nobody's disturbed. US is a bit distracted, Iran. But amidst all those problems, he got out to say the African Growth and Opportunities Act shall no longer apply to Uganda, Niger, Gabon, these countries. Of course, in effect, we are discussing Uganda's case.
I think there Ugandans should give ourselves a thumbs up.
But
amid all those problems we are also included, then that means we are also big.
You can proceed. That's one way to look at it. But you can. What were your reflections seeing that announcement by Washington?
It's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate that you see where I come from. We have a saying. Yeah, if I am the big man of the village and I have some little change in my pocket, I can choose to take over the whole village. Yes, so literally means that a man who grows more wings can kill your father, inherit your mother, become your father. Yes. So, yeah. Now, when the US comes up with with that declaration, I think it was made on the 31st of October, and then on grounds of human rights violations, of course, notwithstanding, and then says, okay, we've dealt with Uganda for the last 23 years. But now we need to stop. That is, I think in itself is a human rights violation in itself. But I don't know why the US and those superpowers have a feeling that it is okay for them to violate human rights in the name of questioning others violating the human rights. Now, we need to know that Uganda is an independent state. We need to know that Uganda is a sovereign state. We need to know that Uganda has an independent government. The question of whether it is independent or not can be answered, questioned and answered the next day. We need to know that Uganda has its own standing and legal binding instruments. The question whether they are respected or not is for another day. Now, if you are a government in the US that you need to control Uganda, then to some of us, you're hurting our feelings. To some of us who have genuinely loved Uganda.
With all due respect, Joshua, they control literally all. They control the country from all sides. Don't you think it's just natural that also our social issues fall along?
That is very true. That is very true, and we cannot to dispute it. However, my issue is, like I said, why do you think you have the right to violate my right in an attempt to tell me that I am violating someone's right? Who gives you that authority? Definitely, it's America we are talking about here, a superpower for that matter. So it can choose to do whatever it feels like. However, me, I wouldn't want now to dwell on that. I would want to come back home.
Yes.
I would want to come back home and look at Uganda and look at the government, look at our economics, look at our politics, look at our democracy, look at our lives here in Uganda and say, okay, with all this disrespect we are getting from the so-called superpowers. Can we as Ugandans learn something? Can we as Ugandans...
Just for the record, why do you think the US retracted their AGOA?
No, like in the icebreaker, my brother talked about it. You're not going to impose your ways on us.
So you think it's linked to the anti-homosexuality?
It is basically that. And there are some of us that do not condone anyone that disrespects nature. I am very pleased that we have a president who will stand and tell you, if you're disrespecting nature, then I am disrespecting you. That is, we cannot compromise that. We cannot compromise that. If Uganda has a culture, if we are Africans and we say these are our values, we are standing by them, there is no way you can start telling me to start sleeping with a fellow man. I mean, that's even too disgusting. If you want to do it, it's okay. It's okay. You go and do it. I have no problem with you. Though I may look at you with a different eye. But again, do not force me to do it. And when I say, okay, this is my value, please respect it the way it is. Respect me to respect you. Now, because with Uganda trading with the US with no tariffs, I think we have benefited as an economy and as a country. We have exported agricultural products. We have exported coffee, which is also questioned. We have exported. We have gained some relief from them. However, like I was saying, it brings me back to, can't we, by the way, as Ugandans, discipline ourselves? Can't we, as Ugandans, know that it is high time? We are being oppressed because we are not disciplined. We are being corrupt. We are embezzling our own money. Can't we, as Ugandans, say it is high time we stood up and supported our own economy? We do not have to see our brothers and sisters living with HIV die simply because America cannot give us funds. Can't we say that enough is enough? If America is saying, for me to give you money to construct a road, you first have to misbehave. Can't we say, okay, we are not going to misbehave in your way, and we are not going to misbehave in our own way, and we shall not be corrupt, we shall value ourselves high, and we shall raise our own funds? Then we can always get, I know there is no money that is an island, we can always get some from somewhere else.
But Comrade Joshua, we're going to get back on how, maybe the government can increase its economic sovereignty, or whether that's even possible at all, especially in key sections like the health sector. But I want to pick your opinion on it, Comrade Nicholas. The US has been, of course, since the structural neoliberal wake in the 1990s, has been trying to impose different values, among which include democracy and human rights as a whole. Now we have a constitution that says enjoyment of our rights should not mean infringement on especially minority groups and homosexuals. We cannot deny that they are Ugandans. They are people with Ugandan fathers, sisters, uncles. Don't you think the US has a case in this, just like in democracy and anti-torture, to also say we need to protect, gay persons?
Thank you so much, Comrade Olaa.
Yes.
I think, as my brother cutted out, constructing a hospital or getting a fund from US government doesn't mean that I should sleep with my fellow man. Why should I misbehave or go astray of my cultural norms and customs in return of getting aid? Later on, after the Anti-Homosexuality Act in May, the President Joe Biden termed it as is it a bad manner? It is a shameful act. He termed it as a shameful act. That it was a shameful act for Ugandans to stop or put their Anti-Homosexuality Act.
True.
And it beat my understanding that a president of the great power, the great USA, to stand on his feet and say that it is a shameful act Me refusing to sleep with my fellow man. It beats my understanding really. So, comrade, me, I think as my brother on my left said, we should wake up as Ugandans and learn how we should be dependent. We should not be dependent to the aid from abroad. The whites have always tried to lean on us every time and then. Let it be in aid of trade, let it be in export. I know we export 80% of agriculture shit in US, but that one doesn't mean that we should deteriorate our behavior and manner in essence of sleeping with my fellow man. That one doesn't mean a sense. I think Uganda should wake up. If we really got independence, we should be independent as Ugandans, not depending on USA in a sense of turning our manners and behaviors. That's it.
All right. Comrade Agaba, do you think it's time for we are at a point of maturity enough in terms of human rights where we can now say, okay, we are not going to listen to the West? Because listening to the West just doesn't mean the homosexuality issue. It's also the omnibus of things like anti-torture, democratic norms. They may not be democratic exports, but they really enshrine democratic norms, among other issues. Do you think we're at the level where the spirit of our country can guarantee that without the West, we shall act accordingly
Honestly,
across various spheres?
I think we'd be pretending. We'd be pretending to claim to have grown or to have had locus to back at the West.
But for purposes of record, do you think the suspension of Agaba privileges from Uganda is connected to the Anti-Homosexuality Act?
No, I think to look at this from the angle of the enactment of this act as the sole reason as to why Agaba was suspended, I think would be to narrow the debate down. Is I like to look at it from a broader view, because come to think of the metrics. I think Uganda exports about $4.3 billion in exports, and of the total amount that Uganda earns in export revenue, only between $7 to $10 million of that is actually attributed to Agaba. So you can see it is almost close to insignificant. It may be not sufficient, but it is a necessary avenue or initiative through which Uganda and specifically Museveni has been propagating his export promotion strategy. So I would like to look at the bill as just a tipping point. You know, there's that book called The Tipping Point. So and in that book they use the analogy of what is that final crystal of sugar when you're weighing on a scale that will land on and it makes and the balance tips. You get it? So I would like to look at the bill as just the tipping point. There have been very many occasions, I think, over which or along which Museveni has told these people off, has called them on, and this is just one of them. This happened to be one of them, but I think it has gone thus far. So, but regardless, I would not like us to dismiss the fact that Agaba still is a very good contributor to our export revenue. You see, because if you look at, for example, the metrics as at June, I think this year, the budget, and I think even still today, whereas Uganda earns about 4.3 billion US dollars in exports, Uganda has an import bill of close to $7.4 billion. So that's a trade deficit of 3 and about trillion. So, and they've been trying to import substitute and export promote. So this coming as a suspension really is what I would call a thrown to the side of an economy that is trying to balance out the deficit that it has been having. So I would not like us to dismiss it. It's still important regardless. Now, what would I say that you see the challenge with AGOA and with all other initiatives through which sub-Saharan countries like ours are able to access markets in the huge economies. The challenge is they have criteria. There are certain democratic criteria that you must meet, and these criteria are reviewed on an annual basis. So it's like you're being arm-twisted to do this because you're being given the other. And I think Africa has fallen victim most of the time. So to me, I think that's a challenge with this. So with what US terms as gross human rights violations, so they've chosen to take on the route of suspension effective January 2020, 2024. So I would like to look at it from that way. Now, look, he has been talking about debt. You see, debt is slavery. Debt is actual slavery. Why? Because if you're to look at the culture of thrift in this country, the culture of thrift in this country is alarming. According to what Patrick Ayota presented in the recent annual general meeting of NSSF, you see, Uganda has a long-term domestic savings to GDP ratio of about 11%. So it means that out of the total monetary value of all the goods and services you have in this country, Ugandans in the long term are able to domestically save only 11% of that. Now, compared to the Asian tigers, we usually like comparing ourselves to the Singapores and the rest that were with us at independence economically. Most of them range between 25 to 35% savings to GDP ratio. So this basically means that even if they are short of cash and that to go to these multilateral lenders, you see, they go with leverage. They go with leverage, but you only save 11% of your GDP, and you come with a bigger begging bowl. So you're bound to have all these preconditions being put on you before you're given this money.
Yeah, we're going to get to the particular discussion, especially the second segment, about how we can sort of, I know it's not possible, and it's also not in our interest to fully run a fully independent economy. Yeah, but just speaking on whether we are able to now deter from any sort of values that are extended by the Western hegemony.
Look, I'll quote. You see, there's a man called Henry Kissinger, and Museveni keeps quoting him. That Henry Kissinger one time said, "You see, African anger does not matter because they have no capacity to enforce it." So the challenge, and this is how hegemonies work. Hegemonies is I impose onto you my interpretation of what is right and what's wrong. And I think we've had this talk here severally. That look, is sex a construct of biology or a social construct? That do I become a man by virtue of having been born one, or I can identify as one? So it is basically the West changing goalposts to impose onto you their interpretation of what is right. So I believe that, like I said, we have no locus to stand and back at these people. I think Museveni sort of has over a period built a pedestal, I think, on top of which he can stand and call them out and back at them. But I believe it's also on a very shaky foundation, because he uses the economy, he uses foreign policy,
geopolitical,
yes, and even military might. You see, as sort of foundations that he can use to stand up and talk against these people. So he's He's, I think, a very calculative guy. He's very calculative. That whilst he can speak out when you suspended Uganda out of a war, I'm very sure he has already sent an envoy to the US to again talk to these people. You see, in the theater of war, even when bullets are crossing, people still meet somewhere and speak and talk things over. So I think that is already en route. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and of course we saw him trying to debate with the MPs prior to, in between the readings, on the necessity of the bill. And I'd like to bring that to you. Do you think this is the best way to, the president in 1984 in the bush, I think, yeah, it was Obote still in power, when he was asked whether he could negotiate with Obote, and he said, I can even negotiate with the devil as long as it's Uganda's interest. Do you think it's in our best interest to, you know, enact something like this, even when it doesn't change much socially? Because I think we have gone on with our daily lives. It's not feasible to implement. Yeah, it's not something that can be implemented in any way, and that is one of the tests of a good law. So do you think it is in our interest? Whilst we might have values as Uganda, is it in our interest? Or was it calculative of us to run out such a bill, or it was just a political statement?
And what bill are we talking about?
The Anti-Homosexuality Act. So, yeah.
Like I said before, and I will still say it, anyone who defies nature is an enemy of humanity. And yes, like my brother said, is sex a question of biology? Or, I mean, if I have to be reminded that I am a man, if I have to be reminded every time that, okay, if you forget that you are a man, then you're going to end up in Ozira. Now that again doesn't bring out the Africanism in us. However, like you said, yes, for the protection of our community, for the protection of
what about protection of national? Okay, the argument was the bill necessary and the act necessary because, first of all, it could also be debated that it doesn't protect the community in any way because it's not feasibly implementable. Two, it curtails down on our strategic economic issues, including tourism, among others, we shall discuss. So do you think it was necessary? Or we could have just continued? Because how we avoid homosexuality effectively in Uganda is your parent telling you, you know, how disown you or something.
Or God will punish you.
Shortly after that, I saw the one Winnie Byanyuma talking about it, and she said we did not need a bill to have our morality upright. We only needed to, like you said, we only needed to listen to our parents. We only needed the religious leaders telling us how the judgment day is coming. But again, I still think the bill was necessary and important.
Think it's as a statement?
Yes, not just as a statement, by the way.
Because it's in effect a statement.
Not okay. We might discuss whether it is applicable or not. But I think it is important. How is it important? Is it something that we do out of will? Is it something that we do out of coercion? Is it something that we do out of pressure? Is it something that can be stopped? Okay, someone is going to say, yes, we have the bill, but are the law enforcers going to come to my bedroom to see what I do in my house? Definitely not. But there are people that need to be protected. And how do we protect them? We need this law in place to protect them. We have minors who are being manipulated.
But someone could as well argue that there's already a Penal Code Act that talks about pedophilia in the Penal Code Act.
Yes, they are. That is okay. They are very many. I'm not so sure if I'm going to stop eating supper simply because I have had enough food at lunch. No. We need, we could have all these other bills.
Yeah.
Yes, we could have all these bills. We could have the Penal Code Act talking about it. We could have already laws in place talking about it. We could have all these moral lessons talking about it. But we need a specific law to protect our community. If the question of is it in favor of our economics, yes, like we said. So if someone said, okay, we are going to stop, like the World Bank said, the World Bank out of the blue said, Uganda, we cannot give you any more funds. And the question is, does that affect us? Yes, it does. But should we now start compromising because we need to get loans? I actually would be very happy if we do not get any more loans from World Bank, IMF, whatever, China, wherever, because the debt itself is choking. Now, if we are lucky that someone says, I am not going to lend to give you money, then that means I am going to get constrained. I'm going to get back in my sitting room. If I went to him to get 100,000 to go and spend it somewhere in Sheraton, and he says, I'm not going to give it to you, then that means I'm going to go back home. I sit in my sitting room and like, okay, if I do not have to go outside to enjoy this luxury, what do I do to survive? That means it should now be a lesson, like I started by telling you that it should be a lesson that we need to cut on our expenditure, unnecessary expenditure. We need to stop all this luxury. We need to know how and where to prioritize. Personally, I'm getting happy and excited about this. Then tomorrow I do not have to worry about if Uganda, the other time we were all worried about the entire airport being taken away to China when those codes came up and we could not interpret them. So if instead of getting worried that Uganda is being sold away, our oil is no longer there because the IMF has already taken it as leverage, let us be stopped. Let us be stopped from borrowing. I know we can, like he said, that it is the truth. We cannot shy away saying that we actually need them. We actually need the support. We actually need the funding. But let it be a lesson to us. Let it be a lesson to our economics. Let it be a lesson to our political class. That if I cannot manage to eat what I wanted to eat in Serena, I can somehow, somewhere, minimize and eat something in Ntinda, and I survive.
Yes, please.
Okot. You see, just to make a brief rebuttal. You see, look, you see now, they're called, I think, canonical thinkers. You see, there are people that have devoted their lives to study aspects like these, culture. And I've had these conversations with more progressive thinker friends of mine. Let's see, I think all of us here will agree that culture has changed with times.
Yeah.
Do you think we're fighting a losing battle?
There's a time when putting on leggings and patras was taken to be
scandalous,
but now it's the word of the day. What was skimpy now is what is trendy. The culture has kept changing with time. Now, why I say this is, look, and I'll give you this analogy briefly. That look, when a British man, a Briton, catches a cold, their culture is, I'll have a handkerchief. Once I sneeze my stuff, I keep it in the pocket. You see, to them, that's what's right. When you find a real conk American, when they catch a cold, they sneeze the stuff in tissue. They rarely have handkerchiefs. A real American. And they'll throw it in a
trash bin.
Now, when you find a Japanese, most of them don't, they have none of the two. Theirs is they look for somewhere and you get it. So to them, that's what's right. You see, so the question that arises out of that is then, is what is right universal or relative? You get it? You see, for we that are more conservative, especially the African folk, to us, what is right is universal. You see, so the more progressive thinkers are trying to impose onto you that, look, what is right is relative. You get it? That, yes, whereas the heterosexual conjugal relations you have with whoever you have them is right, you see there's also a flip side of the coin. And this is also right. This can also be right. So I think it's the conservatism that breeds the intolerance that I think we see out coming. But to me, I believe, like I said, you see, he who pays the piper sets the tune. I still believe that the friction we are having in form of backlashes to the West will eventually subside. And you see, as the Uganda and Africa becomes more urbanized and more modernized, what we are bedeviling now is going to become more ubiquitous, and you will have it to stay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking as a progressive person.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is,
yeah. Please complete.
surely, that is okay. And we can talk about whoever is progressively thinking, whoever is critically thinking, whoever is whatever. We can look at all these things. But the question still remains and still stands. You see, when we say that what used to be is now, the question is, so if what we believe that is correct or is right is universal because we are being conservative. I want to understand how biology and science can answer that. What we are saying is that we are being conservative on our culture and we are proud of it. Personally, I'm proud of it. I'm not going to kill anyone for deviating. No, that is okay. If they want to do it, let them do it. And by the way, remember the bill we are talking about does not stop them from doing whatever they want to do. It stops them from imposing it on others. Yes.
But don't you think you're speaking to Agaba's point? Because there are many studies that show that also why African culture is conservative, almost homophobic, is actually colonial missionary work in Africa. Because as Africans, we have a symbiotic way of merging minors.
I mean, you even have a sex style named out of missionaries.
Yes, but including also issues like, for example,
it's called missionary.
Africans say you need to dress decently, but that was largely a missionary import because they found us with,
literally naked,
slaves.
And I believe there are still Africans who.
So don't you think culture changes? Because the only thing is that now the Western world, which brought it, has moved away, and now we are there.
Culture changes. That is okay. Culture comes in and it's good. It is adapted.
Yeah.
The culture that comes in that is bad should not be condoned. Simple. When missionaries come in, they teach us how to dress up. Literally, we were not dressing up, and we still have Africans.
But maybe that we could also say we were dressing up.
Okay, we are dressing in our own definition. Yeah. But then they told us what we were doing was immoral. We had to dress. If you are a female, you had to dress up.
Please, let's.
Your interpretation of right.
Partake on this issue.
Yes, please.
May I think matters concerning with sexual immoralities and what those people they fund homosexuals. I really accept this one statement Mbide said. There are some people who do it. Do the real act that was accepted. Those people who sleep with ladies. What they find as people who go out and enjoy with ladies.
Because your majority. Your majority.
But what is the essence?
So you in the end have the day.
Whether you want it or not, the culture we have to change.
Yeah. We'll continue with this discussion in the second segment. I think important to note that the homophobic wave of the last decade was actually also driven by Western parties, and maybe we'll have to discuss that a bit in the second segment. But also going back to the main topic of discussion, which is AGOA, and of course the World Bank suspension. Of course, as we said, our dear viewers, this session is to read in between the lines, to make sure that we are able to delve into the issues. And these are some of the problems that we have come up with. In the second segment, we shall be talking about why government was not able to maximize AGOA, among other issues, including the sovereignty of our economy as we move forward as a nation. So stick with us. We are going for a brief commercial break, but we'll be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Yes, thank you very much for our dear viewers. We are continuing the second segment here with my comrades Joshua, Nicholas, and Ivan, or should I say Katabarwa, Mugume, and Agaba.
Yeah.
Mixed more. It's better that way. Yeah, we are discussing the issue around the suspension of AGOA Act, amongst other trends, which include the suspension of World Bank funding, the decision of the USA to say that we should rethink tourism, and we are trying to read between the lines. Are these just genuine problems with our economy, or is the American government trying to tell us something that we should do indirectly? So just to start with you, my comrade Mugume. We saw the US release a statement around 13th June that American tourists, in the light of the enactment of the Anti-homosexuality Act, should rethink touring Uganda. And of course, tourism is one of the biggest earners in the billions of dollars for our economy. What do you make of such an announcement by the USA?
Thank you so much, comrade Olaa. Of course, as we earlier said, Western influence also is a great problem to Africa and Uganda at large, whereby almost all the topics that we have covered rotate around LGTB. Those people in Western tend to use their powers and influence of the LGTB stuff that we should bow down to them in the instance of getting aid. And the issue of travel advisory, I think the statement that was released out by the American State House or White House, it should be noted that Ugandans should learn that we should stand for our own, not rotating around asking for. You said earlier on, before even in my earlier stages, I used to see the posts of USAID, and I used to ask myself, whenever I go over there, I always see the signposts, the buildings written on USAID. I always ask myself, what is this for? Let alone, I said, I heard that it is an aim or an aid coming up from USA. I asked myself, why do these people love us? What do we have? What do we have that they give us that support? So I think the statement that came out from America, telling us that in fact it is a security threat now. It is a security threat. Any white person coming in Uganda comes as if they are under security threat coming out of now the incident that happened in Western Uganda, whereby the people, the Westerners, I mean West people, whites were killed and burnt in a car. And it was attacked to the LGTB thing. So I think Ugandans should just leave whites' aid so as to Ugandans to develop. That's it.
But the challenge then was that this is not realistic in a very globalized world where we depend, first of all, for example, tourism just not for money inside, but for foreign exchange, which has a role in balancing our currency, among other things.
Yes, of course, that's it. That's how it should be. But if it is for money exchange of money and getting revenue, yes, of course, it is positive. We gain from it. But now look into it in the other side, whereby these whites have to come in with influence of change in the culture that we should obey and go in line with them, pursuing, sleeping with fellow men, enacting their acts. That if we should, how can you call me that I should sleep with my fellow man, Agaba? That when I refuse, that is a shameful act, and you're the president, and you want development, and the president of the superpower country. That is a weird thing, to my understanding. So I think we should develop our minds as youth and all the Ugandans at large. We should stop with this. That's it. Welcome there.
Yeah, thank you very much, comrade, right there. And you had a few progressive rebuttals.
Oh yes.
In the first segment, do you think one, this act is captures the overall aspirations? We have a constitution that protects our aspirations as Uganda, but it's very careful in one of the later articles of Chapter 44 that minorities need to be protected as well, including disabled, homosexuals, in this case, among other.
Expressly written? Sexual minority?
No, not expressly, but minorities.
Yes.
And this is defined as a minority group.
It's as broad as that. So anyway, see, I'm not a constitutional expert.
Constitutionalism is a spirit.
I don't need to have expertise.
The UK doesn't have
a written
constitution, but it's one of the most constitutional countries because people just say you follow the rule of.
It's a culture.
Yeah.
Sure. So, well, what to me I usually want to put attention on is, you see, what were we gaining from the AGOA? That I have shared. Our export revenues oscillating between $7 to $10 million every year. So on the flip side, you see now, what do we stand to lose? I think out of the suspension. To me, I think it's a better way to look at it. Now, for me, I look at three things. Price stability, foreign currency stability, and I think the balance of trade. But look, for price stability, you find that you see in every economy, the market forces of supply and demand must constantly clear for economies to have optimum price stability. So it means that, you see, when you have access to markets through initiatives like AGOA, we have demand for what we produce. Demand sufficient enough to level with the supply that we as Ugandans have to give to the world out there. So it keeps our price stability optimal. So with an interruption like this, you get it, an interruption that hampers demand, yet the supply keeps constant or even going up because of the PDM and waking people up to actually engage in commercial agriculture. It means that we risk tinkering with that balance. Two is foreign currency. But look, you see, in fragile economies like these ones of ours, you see, we cannot afford to have dollar deficits. You see, dollar deficits being conditions where there is more demand for the dollar than there is in supply. So such dollar deficits means that our currency risks depreciating. So following the World Bank suspension, I think effective next year.
Yes.
And I think AGOA is also effective January 2024.
Yeah.
So we are studying as enthusiasts in that particular arena. We are studying how the shilling will act. But I'm sure it's going to act. It's going to take a downward spiral. But lastly, you see the balance of trade. I gave you the import bill. It's about 7.4 billion US dollars, and then our export revenue being about 4.3. So you have a net trade deficit of close to like 3.1. So the challenge is if you suspend, it means that even the little we have been exporting to bring us revenue will also be done away with.
Are you also looking at it in terms of potential? Because I think where we can derive the potential is comparing with other countries. I think was it Nigeria or Kenya that did $300 million last year?
Sure. So, and I think because again, I think they meet the democratic criteria that AGOA requires them to fulfill, and I think it's why they have the lion's share. That
do you think that's democratic criteria, or because we're also under AGOA by then?
Anyway, but even then,
do you think it's that's the criteria, or it's the actual mobilization of
just look at the markets that we've been able to secure as Uganda. You see, do we have potential sufficient enough to maintain those markets? Look, I think it was Algeria where they wanted milk here in Uganda. There's a time they were given a contract. Ugandan companies were given a contract, and they could not even supply the entire Algeria for 2 weeks or a month because they couldn't afford. They didn't have the potential sufficient enough to meet the demands of that market. So you see, even the few markets, we end up losing them because our supply side is also still a bit inefficient. So, and it's just a delicate balance. And you see, have enough supply, but also look for the demand. See, because markets are demand driven.
Do you think the market is disorganized? We saw Susan Muwezi saying that while some of you don't care about AGOA because there's nothing to steal for in government, the rural women benefit from it a lot.
Oh yes, because it's the produce bought from their farm gates that eventually is exported out. So even when, because you see, we usually tell farmers that you see, if you look at, it's called from farm to fork. You see that you trace the journey of a plant or produce from the farm to when it's eventually eaten on the plate. You see, where you position yourself along that value chain determines how much value you derive out of the chain. So even when the rural women that you've talked about at the bottom of the barrel, still I believe that half a loaf is better than none. So they get adversely affected. See, because they are not part of the political elite and do not get to enjoy the goodies that come from tapping or dipping your finger into the cookie jar. So to me, I think it's them that are impacted, and they don't know. They begin to feel this effective January 2024. So I again wanted to look at it also from this way. That you see, then what gives Museveni the locus, and I think I talked about that earlier. But just look at it from this way. That Uganda has had a deliberate import substitution and export promotion policy. So under this, Museveni uses an incentive-based system to attract investors to come and open factories here. That not only are you giving jobs to Ugandans, but you're manufacturing locally what you previously used to import. Look, so when you import less, it means that you demand the dollar less. You get it? Eh? So when you demand the dollar less, this means that even when the supply of it is curtailed by suspensions like these, you get it? Eh? Your currency remains relatively stable because you demanded the dollar less anyway. So, and you realize that they've accompanied the suspension with warning whoever wants to do business in Uganda, because they also want to stifle the import substitution efforts that Museveni has taken, the strides he has taken over the years. So, coupled with, you see, we now live in a multipolar world. You see, we no longer live in the unipolar world where US was the only giant after World War II. We now have emerging power centers that have grown all over the world. This is evident just from COVID, the vaccines. China had the Sinovac, Russia had the Sputnik. I think America had Pfizer and Moderna. And I think UK had AstraZeneca. And I think they were giving their patent to India. So you can see that even the COVID vaccine, America was not the only one producing.
True,
and I think in Uganda we had ours that never got to see the shelf. Narubare Dawa. So that multipolar world, coupled with the military might that this man has, he's fighting a proxy war against terrorism on behalf of the US. So they still find him, I don't know, an asset. An asset, albeit him putting up all these shows in the media. So I think that's where he derives the power to even back at. It's a very multipolar world. To the extent, I think the king of Syria, the other day, I think Biden was scheduled to go there. And
Jordan.
I think, yes, Jordan.
Yeah.
And he told him, you're not allowed to step here. You see, you could not say that immediately after the World War to an American president. That shows you how multipolar the world has grown.
Thank you very much for that. I'd like to come to you, Joshua, especially around something you started in the first segment, which is efficiency of government, amongst other pathways towards relative sovereignty. We know that Uganda is not the only country that has passed homophobic laws. You cannot do the same in Qatar. You cannot do the same in Saudi Arabia, in Jordan. But largely, the US will not come out to, say, oh, Saudi, we are cutting you off. So similarly, what are our advantages as Uganda that we should take advantage of? You mentioned better, starting by just managing better, but yeah, could you speak to that? I want that to come out for our viewers.
Well, like you just said, not only Uganda is saying no to LGTBs, but why is it us only that are feeling the heat, or there are others that are feeling it in silence? But like we agreed before, is like he says, if I'm the one feeding you, then I will tell you when you were young, your mother would tell you whether you're satisfied or not. And you have no objection because she's the one feeding you. Now, that withstanding, we need to know that if Saudi Arabia says we are not doing that, that is not our culture, they can support themselves. They have the finances, they have the capacity, which we seemingly don't have. Now, that is why the pressure seems high. And that is where I again come in and say that as a sovereign state, there are some things that we need to do. If we are saying, and I want to disagree with my brother shortly, that we cannot say that we do not want them, and we cannot say that we can be without them. That is not entirely correct. However, it can be correct if we choose to do things the right way. It can be correct. It is quite sabotaging. It is like he says, sometimes you're going to find that the shilling depreciating, sometimes you're going to... But all these come because we are just not doing the right thing. We want to talk and do less. If we have a president who says, don't worry, what the World Bank is saying, that is just a talk. We can survive. But if you are telling us that we can survive, if we have failed to survive with them, how are we then going to survive without them? So what we need to do is that, as the president says, let us take this route, then he needs to close some other routes that we have illegally taken. yeah, if we only could, and I still insist, if we could only boost our internal, our domestic tourism, if we could only reduce, you see, you walk on the streets of Kampala every day. I look at, I look at, I don't know how many lead cars I see in a day, or just on one road. I don't know how many lead cars I see on the road, and I'm like, are all these cars legal in the first place? We said we have a constitution, and our constitution stimulates very well who should have a lead car and who should not have, who has the right of way on the Ugandan roads and who doesn't have. But even you, Mr. Okot, today, you have the capacity to call the Jinja police station and you're like, I am stuck here in jam. Please send me and we shall see Okot move and we shall give way.
But for purposes of record, all of us are entitled to such facilities as long as you justify with
reason.
Yeah. But I think you're speaking also to the spirit of the impunity, because
the
sometimes you see someone taking the other route, you know, as
One way.
a one way.
Yeah.
Yes, the other day I was
having a lead car or living a luxury life is the one causing us to depend on oil. So
we are spending a lot that we don't have.
And there was also a recent issue, just to bring it up for you, about the cost of one parliament sitting. Yeah.
2 billion.
Yeah.
I think Parliament spends average 2.5 billion per year.
There is, I was seeing a post on Twitter that was tagged with a picture of our president that look at the economist who earns 3.5 a month, but spends about 200 millions a day. And really,
In
like,
facilitation.
like we started by saying, if we are going to compare ourselves with other nations, then we need to see what are other people doing outside there that seems to make their nations better, and we are not doing here.
Do you think we are capable of doing that under the current government?
Did you really have to ask that?
yeah, you think?
Because it appears also, it's also a method of, if you recall Andrew Mwenda speaking, that this is also a method of governance. And it's not that our partners are not aware of.
Yes, of course, they are aware of what is happening. And it will come back to us. It will come back to us, whether in government, whether outside government. If we are talking about patriotism, then let us practice patriotism. If you are talking about nationalism, let us practice nationalism. I want to give you a scenario. I'm currently doing a course at YMCA, and I was talking to a colleague, I think late last week, and she told me she had bought a bite, and after eating, she was trying to locate the nearest trash can. And then one of the colleagues told, why are you struggling with this when they are cleaners? I mean, now we are struggling with... Ugandans have very many problems at the same time. We are struggling with educating the illiterates of how to keep Uganda clean. But then we have the literates who are expected to teach the other ones, saying, don't just throw there. We have cleaners, they're going to come and clean. And that is the next ED in KCCA with Keep Kampala Clean. How then do we expect to... You see, they might look at small issues.
Someone with a cleaning company comes in. You're taking up my job. How
no,
would you
but
say about that?
No, what we need to do is, are we disciplined to be able to discipline others? My question is, if Mr. Ivan, if Mugume you cannot sit on a judge on a border and hold a polythene paper for 5 minutes to get off and trash it, how then do you want me to trust you with my powers that now you can take off Kawempe division division, and I'm sure that I'm going to live in a clean environment simply because there is an Agaba somewhere who has cleaning services. That means I'm going to spend where I'm not supposed to be even spending. Now this brings us back to our discussion,
which is how we can gain this sort of a bit of economic sovereignty.
Yes. So do we have the discipline? Do we have the economic discipline to break away from, to start backing at these people, which I think we do not have. Now, as we make the statements, as we make the noise, we need to also get back this side and say, okay, we have said we can live without you. Agoa, like he simply put down well the statistics of how much we have been gaining and what we stand to lose, and he did a very great job. Now, after looking at those, and then we weigh, we have been earning this much. If we are suspended and we are no longer earning that, do we have any other alternative? If $10 million is taken away from our treasury, do we have any other alternative of bringing it back? This is where I'm coming in. Yes, we have the alternative. We only need to be disciplined. We do not have to have all these red number plate vehicles on the road, accompanying only one person. We do not have to have. He talked about the cost of one single parliamentary sitting. Yet the countries we are talking about, that we are admiring, that we are saying, why are you taking away the aid? Don't even have a quarter of the spending we have. Someone is going to argue out that, what are you talking about? UK has a very big parliament. Okay, if UK has that and is still disciplined financially to help you, but you also want to equate yourself with the numbers of someone who is equating you. Now the Banyankore have a very harsh saying. Wakoza nkashono fonyata. Yes. Wakoza nkashono fonyata. If you want to dip, if you're eating and you want to take away, if you want to use the sauce, to eat the sauce the way your father is eating, there is a possibility that your mother looked at your father and said, okay, this is my man, and kept some for him. So even if he scooped it in one gulp, he has an alternative. But do you have it? Definitely you do not have it. Now, so if you eat the sauce like your father, yes, you will enjoy it. Now, to sum it up, Mr. Olaa, is I still insist and call upon Ugandans that much as we need these people, much as we need all these acts, much as we need these blocks, the other day we were discussing about blocks here, much as we need all these partners, we can also get somewhere by ourselves if only we could keep the discipline in our nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that has been, of course, a very interesting submission. We will continue right there. And we still have, in the same vein of different announcements coming from the West, you've been a bit critical about them, but they actually made a point that they will continue funding HIV. Now, I talked to a few comrades, including Comrade Mucho, who works with, I dominate, but a lot of our comrades and
that work in that space.
Work in that space, and they normally highlight the importance of Western-backed funding, especially in health, in terms of PEPFAR, in terms of research. Actually, I think this is the US. You know, all embassies have their own interests, strategic interests, and for the US, really, it has been medical. Do you think we can we have to appreciate them, or thank them for that effort? That amidst all problems, they at least are able to think that yes, we still need Ugandans alive in the wake of HIV.
Thank you so much, Mr. Olaa. Today I saw a headline on NBS that panic in Mbarara over HIV surge. I don't know why always.
It's true.
I think I saw it. I saw it in the last year. They registered over 2,000 something new cases.
May God uphold us. But I think the issue of whites still it is rotated on LGTB. They are the ones who brought HIV. Do you know that?
I don't know that. So, I know that it came from what was that? Chikosi Malu.
Those are fake research. Human
animals.
What?
Sorry, no, I mean the wave came through the Tanzanian Rakai corridor.
Kasensero Island.
That's the point, Mr. Olaa. The US shares a big partnership with Uganda and helping us, coordinating us with the drugs, helping us with people living with HIVs, and of which was a good impact to us. But I think if it has taken, let them go. It will be of no use.
What about the these people move to different entities, hospital to get free ARVs. Have
Yeah, at mild dose.
Uganda is a country where people die of malaria. That means they die because they don't have 20,000 to
Yes,
buy coatem.
Yes, of course.
And to buy
It's-
meat.
It's my understanding that a person may die of malaria but fail to die of HIV. Do you know that? But I think people should just stay away. It is to put on measures of abstaining. That's it. Because if you
That has worked very well.
that's it is open like that. Because if they give you a headline that where the drugs have been coming from, it is now stopped. So if you want life,
But
decide
comrade,
where
what
to
about
go.
those who are really? I think it's 7% of Uganda has.
yes, as my brother said, when the Brits are firing in, someone has to talk. So our dear president has to talk on behalf of our people living with HIV, and at least have a say.
But do you think our government should take up full responsibility of some of these core areas? For example, HIV, instead of leaving it to things like PEPFAR.
Obviously, the government should come up and take over, so as to help those people living with HIVs. Unless, I think people who already have that's a near gone case. You don't have any option.
Really?
So
But-
we should cleanse ourselves of the impure.
Yeah.
We do it the Hitler way.
No, but actually,
Cleanse yourself of the
you'll be
impure.
surprised. You'll be surprised that
The inferior race.
if we are to do that, I'm sure a big part of our economy comes from healthy HIV.
Of course, you cannot
positive
have money or
citizens, including a lot of people in government
The rich ones, yes.
who
Generals.
contribute to
Very many
our
generals.
economy.
Yes.
Those rich people also have problems.
No, I think maybe to
think
cut
we
in
should-
shortly.
sorry.
Maybe to cut in shortly. I think, like you started by saying, yes, we need to applaud them and we need to appreciate them. We need to appreciate whoever is doing anything to keep anyone alive in Uganda, in wherever across the world. Anyone doing anything to keep a human life alive, we need to appreciate them. And like you say, yes, the government needs to take responsibility. The other day, I saw the president talking about the manufacturing of the HIV drugs here in Uganda. I think what he
is
says
lying.
is that okay, we could talk about abstinence, we could talk about, but we also know that we can get HIV from not just HIV.
From birth.
Yes,
got
you
a
are.
Transmission.
Yes, the
Not that
transmission modes are very many. Yes, we have road car accidents, very many. We have birth, we have all these things.
To a mere small extent, really.
Okay, even if it is to a mere small extent, even if it was one person, they deserve life. Yeah, even if it's one person, they deserve life. So I think was like we said, we need each other. That is the bottom line. We need each other. I'm sure we need the US and the US needs us. We need the West and the West needs us. So we need to appreciate them where they have done, and that alone is a good thing. As for getting the health care in working and able to support ourselves, it will take us back to the discipline of patriotism and nationalism.
I don't know why he keeps claiming.
let me conclude my
nationalism.
point.
Yes,
Mr.
please, as you
Olaa.
can. Yes.
Me, I think these people, to tell me that I should first accept the LGTB, that then you give me the drugs. Already the people affected, they are dying. Then you give me the support.
See,
Because that's what they want.
You're a beggar. You have
Yes,
a
I
choice.
accept I'm a beggar, but
Yes.
So how do
how will
we?
I beg when I don't have life?
So should we do it the
At least
Hitler
No,
way?
I think what we are agreeing
losers
on
of the-
is there's a looming need for government to take on, if government
It should take over and then
take over, because now these are different. This is now biological. He spoke of military, strategic strength of Uganda. You brought economy. This is now biological, and all of these three have been
Used as
strengths,
weapons.
are weapons.
Actually, they are weaponized against us.
So
Yes.
our own health system, perhaps what I'm getting from all of this also should be national.
COVID
it
was
is a
an
national
eye-opener.
concern.
National
COVID was
concern.
an eye-opener. How many, what do they call them? Those cylinders, oxygen. We were here short of oxygen, overwhelmed by just few numbers.
And the West was hoarding.
So what happens when funding towards AIDS research?
Did you conclude?
So to my conclusion, I think the government should take over, and my prayers goes to Westerners. Always the headlines come from Westerners. I don't know why, but I think the government should.
What advice do you have for the youth of Barara?
Please
follow ABC
as their leader.
as their leader, I'd like them to follow ABC, as my brother said, but the main thing is abstinence, I think.
Okay.
But later on, before that, I heard that they brought some drug. Is it in pipelines? Is it reached in Uganda? Who is it? My brother can help you about that.
Injectable. Yes, it's. I think it's
and I
testing.
It is unaffordable. It is afforded by those people with read cars.
I think it has been there, and the strength with it is the efficiency, but also the intervals where you are able to administer and take.
So
very many you now
Mr.
take once.
Olaa, we need, of course, aid from USA government and Western influence, but let alone, how would you beg when you don't have life? They want us to follow their culture norms and of LGTB when we already have our problems. So I think
you're begging, you're a burden.
Yes,
so if you
I'm
die,
begging, but
their burden reduces.
Yes.
So
This is so
I'm
complicated,
comrade.
but
You're a resident economist. We have seen Cuba, for example, prioritizing, and as we conclude as well, we have seen Cuba, poor country, stopped from any aid, interaction with the world. In fact, if you go to Cuba, it's the 60s.
it is okay.
But Cuba deliberately invested in health, including export. I think that one of their biggest imports is remittances from doctors. So is it feasible for Uganda to, like make health a national concern in terms of funding, in terms of execution, in terms of research, and in terms of training doctors? Make it a priority national concern that takes care of all Ugandans. And by extension, hopefully, we also export health to Africa and other countries.
Because as of now, we are exporting maize. Now, the point is this, and you alluded to it before, that look, these Ugandans, you see,
Mr. you run too much into economy thing.
What's our tax?
That's the problem.
What's
our tax?
No, but
when
you have it and you don't have the money.
Okay, I'll protect Comrade Ivan.
Sure. So you alluded to it. That look, you see, these Ugandans, how much money do they collect in terms of revenue? How much is needed to run the country?
We are collecting about $6 billion.
Even if you keep it in trillion, $6 billion is a bit makes it look small.
24 trillion.
Yes, about 24 trillion.
Yes.
So, and what is our budget size?
50.
So, what gap then do we have to look for funding or finance abroad?
Around a half.
Good. So, the point is.
But the 6 is also used to pay.
We
are on a more cash model.
This is to pay debt. Look, and you alluded to it, that you see, Museveni finds it cheaper to use a patronage system than to provide Ugandans with this basic.
But for Cuba's case, even under strong patronage of Fidel Castro, where 1 in 3 people is a spy, there's still a priority.
Well, because it's a centrally commanded economy, unlike ours that is mixed. So you have a mixture of government that literally divested all its interests out of business, out of even the basic things. So you find even the basic needs of life have been commoditized. Electricity, Mugume comes and commoditizes it. Healthcare, you find no medical care attention in public hospitals, so you must run to private. Healthcare being commoditized. I think it's only water where they've kept it a bit national, but eventually I know of people that have grown their own private water supply systems and they're charging people money, especially in areas where water has not reached. So once government chose to divest all its interests out of the provision of such basic needs of life, then it leaves us now to market players who are who are profit driven and want to make money. You get it? So it's that way. A patronage system is cheaper than having to suffer to educate doctors and give them scholarships at universities and then look for jobs for them. You get it? So that's the point. Now, as I think I conclude, I just wanted to conclude with this. Look, you see, multilateral lending needs scrutiny itself on its own. That, you see, does anyone know why these multilateral lenders were formed in 1944? You see, theirs was to perpetuate a syndrome of dependency on aid and debt, especially in what they call they call it the third world. They actually don't look at you as Uganda or Kenya. They look at you as the third world. So the dependency on debt and aid is what has killed us. So these lenders find it more profitable to lend to large corporations, but most importantly, foreign governments in these low developing countries. You see, they lend this money to you, but their intention is not for you to repay back their money. It is why you keep in that debt cycle
more cash money.
Yes, and you keep getting you get it. When you're unable to pay interest, they excuse you, they add you more money. You get it? So you pay interest on the old loan and the additional loan. So they just it's called debt rollover. Yes, they just keep on rolling over debt. So you keep in debt. And this has been their plan.
But is there anything that can be done about that?
It's how economic hegemonies are built. It will need a Hitler. It will need a Hitler. It will need a Hitler to have such an overhaul.
On Netanyahu.
Yes, because the point is break dependency of the US dollar. Zimbabwe tried to do that. You know what happened? The people went back to using the US dollar. They can no longer use the Zimbabwean dollar because it's almost close to worthless. So, but breaking away from the dollar.
Did they devalue?
Breaking away from the dollar basically means you simply deconstruct and build bottom up.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for your discussions. We had a few major topics, our dear viewers, including the AGOA announcement, the announcement that tourists should rethink their decisions. Maybe they'll go to Rwanda. We had also the announcement on World Bank cut in aid. So we have been trying to think in between the lines, and I've been really pleased that from our different panelists, what came out clearly is that while we may not control the system or overhaul it, to take another world war maybe, to overhaul systems, there are things that we can do to strategically strengthen our country in terms of negotiation, in terms of stability. Ivan here introduced, of course, that one of our strategic advantages as Uganda is the military work we do. But then we also spoke of the different ways in which you can enhance that. And Comrade Joshua did bring about issues around curtailing or reducing on the expenditure within governments, if I got you right, that enables us to think more flexibly and have more money.
It's called austerity.
Yeah, austerity. To have more austerity and plan better with the little money that we have. And Comrade Nicholas, of course, also highlighting issues around biological or health independence, which I think has been key in one of the attacking points. Because now they're saying they have put back HIV money, but what does that mean? It means they can also take it away. So something coming out is that we need to more and more put health as a national priority. And maybe it's possible, maybe it's not, but it's important. And we have been attacked as a nation on that front. So to our dear viewers, thanks for listening in to the Youth Roundtable today. We shall be continuing with several of these discussions. It was a pleasure having you today. I remain your host, Okot Olaa. Don't forget to share, comment, and continue with the conversation in your own circles. Thank you very much.